All right, folks, these midterm elections just 7 weeks away, and these races really heating up. Here's the thing, voters continue to go after these newcomers, right? In fact, Republican Pete Flores was elected to Texas Senate. He flipped a Democratic district red for the first time in, get this, 139 years. That bolsters the GOP. It certainly gives them a lot more optimism as we head into the November midterms. Also, of course, there's the big Texas Senate race between Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz, and polls more or less have that tightening up. Here now to discuss, Ford O'Connell, the Civic Forum PAC chairman, and Chris Wilson, GOP pollster. All right, Chris, you're the pollster. These numbers are coming in so wacky. I mean, let's face it. Pollsters don't have necessarily the best reputations out there. I feel like they better get it right this time, and so far they're all over the map.
They are all over the map. And, just to talk about your first point with that state Senate race, I mean, that race had been held, that seat had been held by Democrats since 1879. It's also 80% Hispanics of voting age population. So I think it shows what's going on in Texas. But one other key point, Charles, is it overlays with Will Hurd's district, which is one of the districts the Democrats hope to be able to win. It's a district actually that Clinton won against Donald Trump in 2016, and yet the Republicans won it. I think what that shows is the organizational strength of Governor Greg Abbott, and the Senator Ted Cruz campaigns, as they were able to organize and get their voters out to the polls. Now, about that poll, there was another poll out yesterday from Quinnipiac that had the race up 9 points. I can tell you, in full disclosure, I do the polling for both Governor Abbott and Senator Cruz, and that was much closer to what I've seen in the race, is that Senator Cruz has opened up a lead there as voters become more familiar with Beto O'Rourke. It tightened for a little bit. That poll out today, I could go through all the methodological problems with it. Let's just say it's an online poll and leave it at that.
All right, let's leave it at that. But the bottom line, though, is we do know a lot of money is pouring into Texas, and Ford, and there are several states where Democrats are doing very well. Several traditional red, whether it's a state, whether it's local, whatever it is, they certainly look like they're doing better. How are you feeling right now with just about 50 days to go?
Not very good, to be perfectly honest with you, and here's why. I think the Democrats are absolutely fired up. There's a giant, enormous enthusiasm gap, and that's the biggest problem the Republicans overcome. But if I look internally at Republican voters looking at a midterm, which is traditionally a base election, which means the base of the Democratic Party versus the base of the Republican Party, what I'm seeing is a lot of Republican voters don't understand the stakes that are in play here, and they also don't believe the polls. Fully 50% of Republican voters do not think that the Democrats are going to take the House. What has to happen here is Donald Trump and the Republican Party have to figure out a way in the next 50 days to essentially fire up Republican voters. If they do that, we have a slim chance of holding the House and making gains, in the United States Senate. The problem is the same everywhere, from Texas to Florida. One thing about Texas, I will say this about Ted Cruz, he is in a political battle, but he should prevail. But bookmark this: if he loses this race, the Republicans are going to lose the Senate.
Yeah, I mean, it would be monumental. Everyone says. Not everyone, but the conventional wisdom is that at some point Texas may be blue because of demographic changes. But Chris, how do the Republicans get over this complacency? It seems like the folks who are running for these offices cannot fire them up the way President Trump fires them up.
I will say to Texas, I mean, Ted Cruz is doing a good job, and Governor Abbott is doing a great job getting voters fired up. And you look at the enthusiasm level there, to Ford's point, because I track that, and it is now the same with Republicans as the Democrats. To your point about Hispanics, Ted Cruz in that Quinnipiac poll is getting 45% of the Hispanic vote. Texas represents the future, in my mind, for the Republican Party of what we have to do in terms of growing. But you want to talk about how Republicans motivate voters. Club for Growth released a really interesting poll last year in which we looked at, or last week when we looked at the top 41 districts. And I'll tell you how they do it. There's 3 ways: by making the tax cuts permanent, by going out and defunding sanctuary cities, and by making it clear if Democrats take the House, they will immediately begin impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump. If they focus on those 3 issues, it will increase Republican enthusiasm. We'll see exactly what Ford predicted, which is holding the House, picking up seats in the Senate, it become reality.
So Ford, what I did not hear there was the economy. I started this show off talking about the best Christmas ever. We don't talk about...
Let me say this. Voters don't put you back into office out of sheer gratitude, and Chris is absolutely on to something. Yes, you should talk about the economy, but you have to remind voters of the consequences of giving power back to the Democrats. If you do that, that should be the motivator, and that's what has always concerned me about President Trump's red wave talk. President Trump has to be leading the charge here in terms of explaining what's at stake.
All right, gentlemen. The polls are getting crazier and crazier. Thanks you both very much. Coming up, Dr. Christine Blasey's Ford's attorney responds to the Senate's invitation, but